271. $290, dull chain, dollar. Hi, Chad here with Purple Collar Life. In tonight's video, I'm going to show you my preferred saw out of these two Farmbosses. So if you watched the cutting down the scary tree video, you know that I used both the Farmboss MS271, which is the newer Farmboss, and the older Stihl Farmboss MS290. Now my 290 has a 16-inch bar, and the 271 has the 18-inch bar. And I'm just going to do a comparison today, using them to cut up some of this tree and see which I prefer to use just on a regular basis. Cutting just normal day-to-day firewood, I'd like to determine which saw I prefer to use. I used that 2-in-1 sharpener and sharpened the chains on both the 271 and the 290. But for cutting these limbs out, to me it just makes sense to use the shorter bar. I don't need that extra length to cut through these smaller branches, and maybe this would just be the easier one to use. So we'll try it first and get a feel. I pulled away those limbs that I had cut off, drug those into the woods. Someday we'll get a chipper, that would have been a lot easier, but certainly wasn't bad just dragging them in the woods. So now we'll try the 271 Farmboss, just to limb some more limbs, get a feel for the difference of the 290 to 271 when limbing. I did notice a difference in limbing those limbs off the tree. I'll talk to you about that in a minute. But now I'm going to do cutting back this tree a little bit. I'll start with the 271 this time, and we'll chunk this into pieces, we'll buck it, and then I'll switch to the 290, and we'll do a little bit with it to get a comparison on more of the trunk of the tree. Okay, we'll switch over to the 290 now. And I'm ready to make some observations. Let me start by saying you can't go wrong with either one of these chainsaws. The older 290 Farmboss or the newer MS271 Farmboss, both of them hands down beat any other chainsaw I've ever owned from any other brand. That being said, there's a couple distinct differences that I noticed when I was cutting that limb. First one is on me. When I was sharpening these two chains with the 2-in-1 sharpening tool, which I'll put a link to that video up above to show how to use this. If you've never used one, I certainly recommend picking one up. It's easy to use, you don't have to take the chain off the saw, and it takes your saw chain back to new condition. But a couple things I noticed was when I was sharpening this chainsaw, evidently I was in more of a hurry or didn't pay enough attention. It definitely was sharper than it had been before, but it's not as sharp as this one. And I sharpened them both at the same time. I believe I sharpened the old Farmboss first and then the new Farmboss second. So maybe I just did a better job on the newer Farmboss, but I could definitely tell a difference in chain sharpness. Another difference I could tell. After using the 290 and picking up the 271, I noticed the weight difference. And it's not a huge amount. You can watch, there's lots of videos on YouTube about the spec differences between these two saws. But this one, the 271, is definitely lighter. You notice it a little bit when you pick up this saw after having run that saw. You notice it a lot more after you've been running them for a while and you switch from this saw, the 271, to the 290. That's when you really feel that weight difference. The 290 feels really heavy in your hand after you've already cut some wood and you're a little bit tired. And you've been used to this. It's kind of like a weighted bat for baseball players. They add that weight on the bat as they're swinging, and then when they get up to hit, they take the weight off. It makes the bat feel that much lighter and faster. There's that difference when you've cut with the 290 and you switch to 271. It just feels that much lighter. Another difference is I always like to use my bar length to measure the chunks of wood, so I know they're about a 16-inch cut. With the 18-inch, that's a pretty big cut to put in our fireplaces, so I'm always guessing, you know, how much is too much, how much is too little, how much is cutting 2 inches off of this blade. Probably should take a tape measure or something and chalk them out, but it was just always so easy to measure with the bar length, and maybe I'll just get used to visualizing that length. I know that they're not all going to be as standard when I'm using the 271 with the 18-inch bar as they would be with the 16-inch bar on the 290. Last thing I'll say about these two saws, I didn't feel a power difference next to the last thing I'll say about these two saws, I actually didn't feel a power difference between the 290 and the 271. I really thought that I would feel that there was more power. Now, part of the issue may have been the chain wasn't quite as sharp on the 290, but they felt equally powerful to me. The only difference I really noticed in my hands was the weight that I mentioned. The last thing I'll say is the exhaust note. Now, I know nobody buys a chainsaw for the sound that they make, but the sound of the 290 is a much nicer tone than the 271. The 271 sounds almost a little tinny. Still sounds like a quality saw, no doubt about that. But they always say with vehicles there's no replacement for displacement. And maybe that's the same in the saw, that 290, and it does have a different muffler type, but it's just got a little bit better growl when you're running it than the 271 does. Like I said, still sounds really good, but if I were buying a chainsaw on exhaust note, I'd probably buy the 290. So, after that comparison, which one will I use to cut up the rest of the tree? That's a tough call. I'm glad I have both of them. I'll probably start using the 271 as my go-to saw because I like the lightweight compared to the 290. Now, I never would have said the 290 was heavy before I had the 271, but when I'm cutting in close quarters, it is nice to have the shorter bar. So if I'm cutting limbs that are close together, I'll probably go to the 290 with the 16-inch. That's just because of the bar. But the 271, I'm really impressed with it. I thought that it would be a good saw, just not quite as good as the 290. I'd say they're about equal. If we want, we can call it a tie. I will say that I'll probably use the 271 a lot more going forward just because of the weight difference in them. Thank you for tuning in. If you like videos like this, please click that subscribe button, like, share, and comment below. I'd like to hear your thoughts if you have used both the 290 and the 271, if you kind of agree with me or if you have different opinion. I'd love to hear it.